Jesus, history or hoax? When I was studying history at undergraduate level, I had to write an essay. What qualities of mind should a historian have? And one of the ones that kept coming up is integrity. The historian has to follow the evidence wherever it might lead. See, in maths or science, you might talk about proof. You kind of reason it out and you get to prove a theorem. But in history, that's not quite right. You talk not about proof, but about evidence. How does the evidence sit in such a way as to make you believe a certain set of facts? Have you got the integrity to follow the evidence wherever it might lead? Now, when it comes to Jesus, I think there's two big questions we've got to ask. First of all, is the New Testament historically reliable? And second of all, did the resurrection of Jesus from the dead actually happen? First of all, concerning the New Testament. And I think you can break this question down 3 times. Was it historically transmitted? Was it historically written? Or reliably written, I should say. And third of all, does it have the ring of truth to it? First of all, was it reliably transmitted? Now, when it comes to ancient sources, what you have to do, because paper rots quite quickly, and we're talking about texts from thousands of years ago, is you collect the earliest copies you can find, often called manuscripts. The more manuscripts you have from a wider geographical area, closest to the events, the more reliable your reconstruction can be. So, for the works of Plato, they reckon they've got 7 early manuscripts of some of his work, and for Herodotus, the Greek historian, 8 early manuscripts of his work, both of which were about 1,000 years after those publications were written. Yet, classical historians have no problem with saying, yeah, we're pretty sure we know what was in those originals. This is where Christianity has a little bit more swagger, because there are about, according to J.P. Moreland, a historian, about 5,000 different manuscripts for the New Testament. Before the year 325, only 300 years after Jesus' life, death and resurrection, there are about 32,000 citations of parts of the New Testament just in the works of early church historians. It was reliably transmitted. Second of all, was it reliably written? L. Ron Hubbard, who started Scientology, said, if you want to get rich quick, start a religion. But those who wrote the New Testament, the 12 disciples, well, 11 of those were martyred while saying, we believe Jesus died and rose again from the dead. Whatever else they were trying to do, they certainly weren't trying to deceive people. And thirdly, does the New Testament have the ring of truth to it? Well, in his excellent book, Can We Trust the Gospels, Peter Williams from Cambridge University points out that the Gospels do seem to have the ring of truth to it. They include details of topography, botany, financial regulation, unusual customs for the area, matters of language and heritage, all things that a first century Jewish person who would have seen Jesus would know. The New Testament, I believe, is reliable. Second of all, when it comes to the resurrection of Jesus, and this is hugely important, one of the New Testament writers said, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, Christianity is a waste of time. No other religion ties itself to a historical event like this. Well, let me read to you an extract of the Gospel of Mark, one of the first biographies of Jesus' life, as it talks about the resurrection of Jesus. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb? But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Don't be alarmed, he said. You're looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he's going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you. Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone, because they were afraid. 4 facts that I want to quickly pull out of this account. First of all, Jesus was really, really dead. The Romans killed him. They were very good at killing people. His body was even embalmed and placed in a tomb. You can't do that to a body that is still breathing. Second of all, the body was really missing. These women knew where he'd been buried, and they went to the tomb expecting to find a dead body, and it's not there. If the disciples wanted to con people by hiding the body, it could have been found and reproduced at a later date. but all the people who died for Christian faith said they died knowing that Jesus rose from the dead. First of all, the women were surprised. They weren't hallucinating. They weren't going to the tomb expecting to see him alive again. They were expecting to see a body. And at the end of it all, they're not sure exactly what they've seen, and they leave. Later on, they conclude he must have risen from the dead. And fourthly, and I think most convincingly, Christianity rose exponentially from this point. You've got a moment where Christianity is dead and buried, Jesus is in a tomb, and on that first Easter Sunday, the body is missing, and the disciples suddenly go from cringing cowards to wandering around the Near East, proclaiming with their teaching and with their lives, we have seen Jesus, who was dead, alive again, and we believe he is God. Now, Christianity spread and grew exponentially in such a way that in 300 years it brought the Roman Empire to the verge of conversion. What gave these cowards such confidence except the fact that they had seen the risen Jesus again? Rodney Stark, the sociologist, famously wrote in his first edition, The Rise of Christianity, on that very first Easter Sunday, something happened. There are two questions. Is the New Testament reliable? Did the resurrection of Jesus really happen? Now, you may not be fully convinced of this. I'd encourage you to go away and look at the Gospels for yourselves. But surely you've seen that Christianity is tied to real history, that the Bible is worthy of your respect and your investigation. And hopefully you're going to be a bit like me studying history in my first year, and you'll realise that it's a matter of integrity to follow the evidence wherever it leads.